When I founded MCCO, I received a letter from Paula Nilsson.
That's me. But I didn't have my name on it, though.
That's right.
I had my address.
That's right.
Yeah.
Had an address, but didn't have a name. But I wrote you back.
Yes, you did.
And didn't know who it was from.
You said it's always great to hear from interesting people, and that you are. I remember that.
That's right, because you told me your life story.
Yes.
And I said you were welcome to come to the church, if I remember right, and I hoped you would come.
Yeah, I was involved in the Foursquare Church and working in a job where they didn't know I was transsexual.
Right.
And so I had a gay man, friend of mine, Steve, who I met when I first came to LA through a friend. That's another story. But at any rate, when you started MCC, that's when I first heard about it. This was in 68 or 69.
68, yeah.
And Steve told me about it, and then you had the little ads in the Advocate.
That's right.
You know,
Reverend Troy Perry gave my home address.
Right, and it was in Huntington Park.
Huntington Park, yeah.
Yeah, and you and then you outgrew the little house where you started the meeting. The very first meeting, Metropolitan Community Church, was in a home in Huntington Park, California, with 12 people. Today, there's how many churches all over the world?
Almost 300
churches. And there was definitely a need for that kind of a ministry. And one would think, that a Unitarian or somebody from one of the more liberal churches would have started the church for gay people.
Didn't happen.
It wasn't. It was an old school of Pentecost, old-time Pentecostal Holy Ghost preacher that got the vision to start a church that accepted God's gay and lesbian children.
It's really the truth. And the first time I met you, where it was so strange.
The Encore Theater.
That's right. People ask me sometimes because when they meet you, I said, even then, I said, she came to the altar and I said, for communion.
Right.
And when I served her communion, she threw up her hands like we Pentecostal.
I did. I just automatically did it.
And I knew immediately, I said, oh my God, another Pentecostal.
Right.
And that was the connection. Mm-hmm. And it was, I had no idea you were the person who had written the letter. And later you started talking to me and told me that you were transgender. Mm-hmm. We didn't use that word back then.
No, that wasn't coined yet.
But I didn't care whether you were a cross-dresser, whether you were just did it entertainer, whatever. But your testimony was so real to me, and it was just amazing as I even today tell people that almost 37 years ago, we became friends then. And it's been an amazing faith journey as I've watched you. And over the years when I would come up here and friends would take me out to the club to Darcell's and where you would entertain or something, I always had the greatest time.
Yeah, that came later.
That was later. But still, I just loved it. I mean, that you were doing what you were doing. And then, of course, throughout our time, I've kept in touch with you. I've tried to always to know where you were at, what you were doing, because you were in those early days of Metropolitan Community Church, and you were one of the few kids that I had. I felt like, and of course we were all kids back then. I tell you that too. That was someone who talked about religion, not afraid of that, and yet cross-dressed. So that was immediately to me something so unusual. And yet I knew you knew what you were talking about with the Pentecostal church. And I was a great, just a real fan of Amy Semple McPherson's.
Oh, right.
I had Sister, as they called her in the denomination. She was referred to as Sister. I loved all the books. I bought some of those early records that they did of her. I had friends who went and got them for me out of the archives. I watched films on her.
From Milk Pail to the Pulpit was one of her albums.
That's right. And I love that album. And when she would talk, her testimony was so real. And only had problems with the Foursquare Gospel Church once. And that was in 1977 during the Briggs Initiative fight.
Oh, right.
The radio station at Angela's Temple did an editorial supporting the Briggs Initiative. And I asked for equal time, and under the laws at that time, I got it. And
so you gave an opposing argument on the Briggs Initiative on the Foursquare Gospel.
And of course, they didn't know what to say. There were people who were so upset because I said, had Sister Amy lived, she would support us. And they didn't know what to do with this. I said, she would have been supportive of gay people. She was never hateful to anyone.
No, she wasn't.
Everyone was welcome in that church when she was alive.
Same thing with Catherine Kuhlman.
And but I wanted them to know about the founder of their denomination. The only other time I had something happen is we had sued the state of California to go into prisons. And that was time we were starting a worship service in the county jail.
Prison ministry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in Los Angeles, we were going to start services every Sunday at county jail. The chaplain didn't want us there, so we went down and I met with the sheriff of the county and the chaplain, and he turned out to be a Foursquare Gospel chaplain. I said to him, just trying to break the ice, that I was such an admirer of Sister Amy Semple McPherson. And he said, well, the church, their thing is we were very ashamed of what she did. And I was so shocked, I didn't know what to do. And I thought if I was ashamed of the founder of a church, I wouldn't be a member of it. And I thought, you are a sick puppy. But I won, and we ended up in the prison ministry in the jails. They're holding our services every Sunday, and we still do.